Welcome to the 34th Annual Arts and Crafts Weekend, held virtually rather than at the Grove Park Inn. Unfortunately, we would all love to be there, but I'd still like to welcome you as if you were in my booth. I have had the privilege of having attended for 29 consecutive years, and 25 years I've had a booth to represent my work and allow myself to meet the attendees and help them with their homes across the nation. I've been doing historic interior design since 1988, and I arrived at the Grove Park Inn in 1992 and decided to specialize in craftsman style. And I've never looked back. I really enjoy it. It is definitely my personal style, and I have a lot of passion for it. I have had a chance to help people in cities all over America, and so now my byline is that I consult anywhere. I would love to see more houses in different parts of the world and learn more about arts and crafts myself to pass it on to anybody that I help with them. I've given lots of workshops and small discussion groups across the years. I've been published in American Bungalow, Style 1900, Art and Architecture. I've had a couple of covers. It's been a really wonderful 29 years. This particular presentation is about choosing color for bungalows. And it's slightly different than just general interiors. And some of the things that I'm going to teach you also refer to exterior. And there's going to be another presentation about that. I encourage you to watch that as well. So watch your schedule. So when I have been brought into a craftsman house such as this one, unfortunately, many times the woodwork has left natural until just before they sell it. So one of the things I'd like you to check, if you have a historic home, is how many layers of paint are on the woodwork. Then you'll decide whether it's worthwhile to strip it all or maybe have another option. And I have other options. One would be just to paint the trim the darkest color that you choose in the room, rather than it all white. I just think that you can have a true bungalow and have craftsman furniture and the wrong color, and it still doesn't feel like a craftsman house. The color is way more important than anything else. The lighting and the color that's on the walls, on the woodwork, the stains, that sort of thing. So that's the first thing to do. And when I'm helping someone choose color, there's a couple of things you would need to follow. You first decide what's going to stay in the room, whether it's that leather chair because it's really comfortable. Maybe someday down the road you'll replace it with a Morris chair, I hope. But if not, okay, let me know. That's going to stay in the room. The carpet is very important. If you have hardwood floors, you should have an area rug. And the size of that is pretty important, but we'll talk about that in another episode. If the carpet is remaining in the room, then there is where you begin with your color choices. In this particular room, the fireplace is very dominant. It's not a large room, it's kind of long and narrow, and so because it's the stonework that's out actually on the outside of the house as well, this is the most important thing. So I'm going to use the color of the stain of the floor and the color of the stone to direct my suggestions. And particularly how you see the gray and the naturalness of the stone compared to the white, it makes the stone look dirty, sort of. So changing that is going to change your reaction to the stone. So I've chosen two different colors, and I'll explain to you why I chose them. First of all, this is a color selector that I use that's very helpful and I think works really well for this presentation. You can see that there's quite a few choices that would look really good. This one, this one, this one, or even darker. I chose this one to bring out the lightest and goldest tones because the stain on the floor is also golden. And then another option, so these are the two options that I have. And this is a very unique color, and it's part of this color line that I represent. The reason why it looks so unusual is that there is its complement mixed into this color, and also with this. So if we'll say this is kind of in the golden tones, there's probably a little bit of purple in it. Not white, and not black, but its complement. So that softens it and makes it look more historic. And so this is the color that I'm going to choose to put on the wall, and I'm going to mix it with marble powder and create a suede surface on the paint. And just do the wall behind it, and then suggest that this mantle not be replaced, but just a two-sided box that will slip right over it in courtesan oak. Be an inexpensive addition. You don't have to have any demo involved. It probably won't even require a nail to make that happen. And hopefully we can get a shot of the finished, and it'll be up on my website at the time that that's done. So to review, we start with the floor stain somewhere in between here and the tones of the rock, and come up with something that's kind of a mixture of those two to make it look like it's blending. Then your carpet just needs to have a little bit of those tones in it. It can range between shades of green, shades of gold, shades of gray, even a little bit into the gray blue, and all of those will work. This is like a foil to really complement the stonework. The other thing is I would suggest that we change the trim color to a bit darker. These are two that work really well. So this could go on the wall, and this could be the trim color, and it would change the whole vibration of the room. And these colors, I felt, went really well with the color of the floor. So any of these directions you can go. So remember that you go in with either photographs or samples of what's going to remain in the room, and then go in colors that go to the left or to the right of that, either lighter or darker, and then all elements will be blended together. This is the second bedroom in the stone cottage, and again, all I did was choose linens and made them out of sheets. This is a duvet cover, beautiful pillows behind, and found a print textile that really relates well with the carpet. I really like the acanthus leaf, and then that same direction of the pattern of these leaves in here. It's very important that those elements, when you're mixing patterns, they don't have to be matchy-matchy, but the movement needs to be similar. It's a very simple change. This bed skirt could also go on this side table or across the dresser as a bed linen. excuse me, as a textile across this little side table, or across the top of the dresser as a dresser scarf. So I made it the size that it would just barely fit across the bed, and then gave it a lot more versatility in the room. I'd probably have her choose a really great painting that feels very craftsman, put that on the wall, and maybe have a beautiful piece of pottery or something like that that's classic craftsman, and the room's done. So I wanted to keep in mind that there's the brown curtains. My suggestion is that we replace them with wood blinds that match the wood floor. It will give an architectural detail to the room and also warm up what's going on. There's way too much white. So we began by wanting to go in a direction of green. So we found the sheets, because those are the things that we have the less number of choices. Usually when you look at sheets, there's 5 or 7 different colors. So we found this really, really fabulous quality 1500 thread count sheets. Then I found fabric that would go for the bed skirt, and I wanted to note that sometimes you can turn the fabric over and have a whole different look. So if we had done that, look at how much richer that would be. I probably would have done that if this was a man's room. We'd have this darker tone use of the fabric. And then next I found this print that I made into the pillows and the pillow for the side chair and this bed scarf, and used the pattern of the fabric to create this detail on each end. So now we're going to talk about the next evolution, and the last choice is always the paint, because now you've made the collection and you have thousands of colors to choose from. So in my selection of paints, remember I talk about the paint that has its complement in it, and I wasn't quite able to nail it. So what I did is I asked my paint specialist to take this formula and cut it by 75%. So there'll be 1 quart of this color to white. And I'm going to leave the trim white here, because typically in the upstairs was a paint grade trim on Craftsman houses. The downstairs living room, dining room, main public areas would often have natural wood, but upstairs they would be paint grade. So I'm going to follow that tenet, and we're going to have paint grade up here. We're not going to worry about making it darker or anything, but I do want the walls to blend with our color selection, and it will be somewhere between this and this. It'll have a little bit of yellow, a little bit of green, and soften this stark white trim. And I think it's a very welcoming room. This is a bed and breakfast, and I think that any guest will be happy to stay here. This is a home that I did and was published on the cover of American Bungalow magazine. It's a really fabulous example of a medium-sized bungalow in the Pacific Northwest. And the unusual part is that we did the entire house all at the same time. They actually moved out because there was an earthquake and all the walls had to be prepped. And I was able to get the insurance company to pay for Bradbury & Bradbury wallpaper that's hand silk screened, because the walls had wallpaper on them. So there was a real great advantage of having me on board for the project. We chose all the wallpapers first. So that was the thing, that they got to look at what they really liked. This is the living room, and this was very similar to the color of the woodwork. I brought in this color as the wallpaper, and then this is the big, beautiful trim that you don't see up above. And that sort of directed it. Then we went into the dining room, and this is the wallpaper there. I did all the set design for this. This is the Persian carpet that was in this dining room. So you see how closely it mirrors the colors. And this was the carpet that was in the living room, bringing out the color of the wood. And this is the raspberry bramble we put in a small bathroom, brought the tile up about 4 feet. This is the kitchen. Now, you're asking me about color. Why am I using this as an example for choosing color? Well, we chose the wallpaper, then we chose the paint. And that's the direction. You choose the carpet, then you choose the paint. The paint is the last thing. So choose the thing you have the least number of choices and move to the things that you have more and more choices. So you may only have 4 or 5 choices in a carpet. Then you move to the textiles for the furniture, and then you choose the paint color. And the really cool thing about this house, and so with all these colors, I came up with the exterior color, and then we gave samples of all the wallpapers to the landscape architect, and all these grasses and drought-resistant plants were planted based on the colors that are actually inside the house. So it's like seeing the book and knowing what's inside, and then opening it up, and it makes, you know, some people think, oh, it's all going to be boring. It isn't boring, but the green and the gold and the yellow are all a part of every aspect of this. And so you go from one room to the next room, and they're interrelated by that cohesiveness that we established on the exterior. So it was a really, really unusual project, because I got to be involved with every single aspect of every single room, all at the same time. Usually people do one thing, and then 4 years later they do another. It all works, but having an overview, this is what this really represents, is having an overview of where you're going. And every person that I work with, I create that overview, and then they take it at the speed or the monetary ability over time to complete the project. But each decision should be reflecting the other decision that was already made, so that it all comes together. And when in the article, which you can read on my website, the owner said that when he walks in the back door, he lets out a sigh because he loves his home. And I wasn't even, he never even told me that, but he told the editor of the magazine, which is really a great compliment. I feel really proud of this project. This project is really one of my highlights of my career. And how it ties into color choice is the very first thing they wanted was a stained glass window to go in the front doors, kind of like the Gamble house. And when I looked at the architectural drawings, I realized that there were 2 more windows that were possible to include in the panorama. The windows have not been installed yet, but the house is complete and they are living in it. So the one thing they gave me is a video of their view, and said that half the year it's white and blue because they're in the highest peak of the Rocky Mountains. So there's snow and blue, blue sky. White and blue and true red are three colors that really aren't used in the Craftsman style. If it's a blue, it has more purple blue or gray blue direction. If it's red, it's more brick, maybe a little more orange, copper, but not red, white, and blue like the American flag. So this was a little difficult for me, thinking they wanted blue and white, and obviously green and brown because it's the Colorado Mountains. So based on the panorama, I came up with this drawing, which is really their view, and translated into how it would be used in stained glass as the entry. And that set, as I'm saying, it set the tone for the colors and everything that happened afterwards. As it turned out, we used this intersection right through the middle to create these very large lanterns in the green and green style. We're using that exact landscape, and when you're standing and stepping in through this door all the way through the house, you see the view, and the lantern hangs in the dining room. Then the living room lantern and the kitchen lantern and the entry hall are exactly the same design, but only as a line drawing. So it's repeating it, but not with the color. So the only one that has color is the one over the dining room. Then we went into choosing carpets, and I suggested that they use Archibald Knox, who is a designer from a contemporary of William Morris, and Persian Carpet Company creates reproductions of them. This is the carpet that's in the dining room, and you can see elements of the one in the living room. In both these two examples, we were talking a lot about the landscape and the natural flora and fauna, and this is the direction that I always like to take. So when you're looking at the exterior of your house and choosing colors, that's another element to choose from. Choosing colors that situate, choosing colors that are seen in the environment in which the home is placed, whether from the interior out or from the out looking in. I hope this has helped you and that it will give you confidence when you walk into the paint store and go to choose your colors.